After a chaotic May, June feels like an exhale, a chance to allow all of the truths that arose during the month of May to settle, to be in the body, to integrate through the feeling function. So if May was about expression and communication, June feels more like feeling and then expressing ourselves. It's quieter, it's slower, it's more internal, which is interesting because for the first 3 weeks of June, we have the sun in Gemini. And oftentimes we think of Gemini and we think of extroverted, right? It's going to be a really extroverted season. We're going to be going out there talking to everyone. But we got many planets in Cancer, right? We're going to talk about the astrology. We're going to talk about the human design. And we're going to do tarot, of course, because that is where I can really tap into my intuition. Ooh, the bottom of the deck was the High Priestess, as I said, intuition. But before we do, I want to ask you, how was your May? What did you like about it? What was easy? What was hard? What surprised you? I often tell my students and my clients that reflection is a huge part of embodiment, right? Looking back to what we've been through, naming it, sitting with it. So you might even go back and watch the May video and just see what resonated. Man, as I'm tapping into the energy of June, it is feeling quite nice. It is feeling quite boring, quite still, but that doesn't mean that it's not meaningful, right? This is a necessary part of what we are moving into. If we think about the evolution of the zodiac wheel, we see that when we move from Gemini, which is about perception, communication, thoughts, learning, when we move from that into Cancer, we are stepping into the feeling function. And the feeling function requires us to slow down a bit, right? And Mercury is really the planet that I'm watching this month, and I'll explain why in a little bit. But Mercury is going to be in Cancer the entire month, and it's going to be moving slowly because it is going to go retrograde at the end of the month. So, as opposed to Mercury in Gemini during May, which was moving super fast and was really just kind of all over the place, Mercury in Cancer is not only moving slower, but it's moving through the terrain of the moon, right? You guys, I'm wearing my white shirt because for June, the gemstones are moonstone and pearl. We got my moonstone here as well. And I just love the moon and the receptivity of the moon, the openness of the moon, the ability to receive from the world. And that's exactly what we will be doing. I just talked about Mars in Taurus and Venus in Cancer and learning to receive. We're definitely going to be talking about this more with the Venus-Jupiter conjunction and keeping our perception open to what is trying to come to us. So, June feels like this energy of feeling first and speaking later. And that's very different than the messages I was getting for May. If you guys were watching me during May, it felt very big. It felt like even if you didn't end up expressing a truth outwardly, maybe you're waiting for Leo season to do that, but something was coming up for sure. So the first half of, by the way, this is a PDF. I'm thinking of for my founding members on Substack. I might start sending these to you guys every month, so you have it all in this really pretty PDF. But this month in general is kind of split in half. So the first 2 weeks are really rich, but also very quiet. And then we move into the second half, which is a little bit more movement. We've actually got a lot of ingresses happening this month, meaning planets moving into new signs. So we'll talk about that later. And also, I want to point out that this entire month, really, Uranus is squaring the nodes. It'll be exact June 12th, but it's really doing it all month. It's very much within orb. And this is a very disruptive energy, right? Uranus disrupts. It's shocking, it's rebellion, revolution, and the nodes are our evolutionary purpose. And when it's transiting, it's for all of us, it's for the collective. And the North Node is about to leave Pisces. And Pisces is another very, very feminine sign. And so we're really being pushed, maybe through sudden shocking events or disruptive events all month, to release some of the negative aspects of the South Node, which in Virgo is perfectionism, over functioning, self-sacrificial in the name of service. And we are asking to just to be in this present moment, to allow ourselves to be worthy, right? So the South Node is not something we just abandon. It's something that we're refining, which ironically Virgo loves to do. So this is one of the reasons too why Mercury is like my planet of this month, because it's ruling Uranus in Gemini. It's ruling the sun in Gemini for the first 3 weeks. It is also ruling the South Node in Virgo, and it's going retrograde. And then at the end of the month, Mars moves in Gemini as well. So even though Cancer is the predominant energy, Mercury is the planet I'm watching. Let's just take a quick look at the astrology and then we'll go deeper into it. So June 1st, Mercury moves into Cancer. And then by June 4th, it is squaring Neptune, squaring Saturn, and then enters its pre-retrograde shadow on June 12th, the same day that we have that Uranus squaring the nodes. And then, as I mentioned, it's really happening all month. It's more concentrated at the 2-degree point from June 5th to June 18th. And Mercury is also doing this really interesting thing at the end of the month where, it's like I'm watching it get closer and closer to Jupiter, but it never quite conjuncts. And it is doing the same thing with Mars, but it's giving us still a little bit of opportunity to have more optimism and hope, to expand our mind and to start moving towards what actually feels good for us. And then at the end of the month, we've got this full moon in Capricorn, Mercury goes retrograde, Mars moves in Gemini, Jupiter moves into Leo. And what's not on here is in the ingress part is that Chiron's also moving into Taurus. So as you can see, we start really shifting the last 2 weeks and we start seeing things kind of moving about. I want to talk a little bit about this new moon in Gemini because it feels quite boring. And I love that for us. I love that. There's this misconception about Gemini that we are super extroverted. And from the elemental perspective, Geminis and air signs and fire signs are extroverted because there's an outward focus. But when we then put those archetypes into certain placements, especially the sun in Gemini, it's actually quite detached, right? It's can be kind of introverted or distant because it's hard for Geminis to fully just exist in the moment because we're so busy perceiving everything and getting so much information in through the environment and through our mind. So even though Gemini really lives in the present, it's not grounded super much in the present, right? It's just noticing everything in the present. And so a lot of times we think, oh, new moon in Gemini, it's going to be like, woo, speak your truth. And this one feels a lot quieter because the ruler is what? Mercury. And what's Mercury doing? He's slowing down. And he's in Cancer. He's drowning. Mercury just wants to play and he wants to, make jokes. And Cancer's like, you can't say that. You can't say that. You're going to hurt their feelings. One of the things I love about Gemini is the curiosity. And people say that Geminis don't age like other people. And I think a huge part of that is our curious minds. As we get older, we have less mental agility, right? People get stuck in the neural pathways that they've created. We get more rigid, we get more stubborn. And Gemini can definitely have that too, but it can also be super, super curious and open to learning and open to speaking to different types of people. And that can keep us quite young. So I think this new moon on June 14th is a new beginning in wherever you have 24 degrees of Gemini in your chart around curiosity and communication, a new way of thinking about things. So that'll be nice. And it's a new story beginning for you, a new 6-month story beginning for you that will culminate in 6 months. Other than that, I don't know a lot to say. And then the full moon in Capricorn is a little bit more intense here because this is about structure. This is about responsibility, and this happens the same day that we have the Mercury retrograde. So, and yeah, that's going to be interesting. We'll talk more about that, the full moon later. Mercury is the planet of the month for me. So June 1st, it moves into Cancer. Now we slow down. You guys, how crazy is it that I did not plan my 2 week silent meditation retreat based on astrology? This is something I'm really passionate about because I use astrology and human design for timing, especially astrology. It's really great for that. But if astrology was taken away from me tomorrow, I would be totally fine in terms of even timing and all of these things, because when you're super attuned to your body and the recognition that like your body is the cosmos, and you are the cosmos, when you do that work, and yes, it takes a little bit longer, but it's a different type of investment into yourself, and I think a worthy one. You realize that you don't need to tightly grasp onto the perfect day to do something, right? And I'm really passionate about this, especially when we have things like Venus Jupiter coming up, because I didn't even mention that, did I? Why did I not put that here? Oh, I did. I just totally skipped it. How funny. Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on Venus Jupiter conjunctions. I've talked about it previously. I am doing a Substack on it as well. So if you guys are interested in my thoughts on that, I'll have a Substack coming out soon because I do think it's overhyped. It's not that it's not good. I just think it's overhyped and it gets people stuck. When I planned my retreat, I wasn't thinking about the astrology, but there's this 3-week time frame where I'm in my 12th house perfection year. Mercury, Venus, and Jupiter are all in Cancer in my 12th house, and I'm going to be spending that time in a silent meditation retreat. Like, how perfect is that? And it was so funny because I really was thinking, like, practically it'd be better in August, but there was something in my body that was telling me for months it needs to be June. So I just want to mention that to you guys because the shadow of Cancer can be like codependency. And here with Mercury here, it can be places that we are codependent emotionally, mentally. And so I'm just thinking about my Substack and I talk about this is like some of us are like emotionally dependent on astrology. And a lot of people profit off of that, right? Because there's always more that you need to know outside of yourself. And I wonder if this month, especially around June 4th, when we've got this Mercury square Neptune anyway, and it's just like Neptune is making our thinking so foggy and really dissolving the barriers of the mind, we can step into like, what would it feel like to just put things down? I just made a short about this. What would it feel like if I just like didn't look at my astrology for a couple of days? Whenever I work with clients and we do things like this, they generally feel really good about it. And we pick back up into astrology, right? But we put it down and we just lose that sense of dependency. And instead, we can come into this nourishment of relationship to feel nurtured by astrology, because Cancer is really about what nurtures us, what nourishes us, right? This is the moon, this is the mother, this is the family, the emotional world, the unconscious. So there's, of course, this very like slowing down that's happening, and it's necessary. Then we got Mercury square Saturn here on the 9th, which is really, Saturn is the planet of resistance. And I always talk about how resistance is not a bad thing. We need resistance to know where our edges are, right? Neptune reminds us, like when there's no edges, it's hard to know where you end and everything else begins. How do you build off of that? But Mercury squaring Saturn says, yeah, there might be some resistance here. There might be a sense of like frustration that you're not getting what you want, or like you're having a conversation and it's not going the way that you wanted. Uh yeah, maybe that's a time to reflect, right? If I think about this month being feel first, speak later, this square, whatever this thought, this project, this conversation that you're having that is feeling like it's hitting some sort of a roadblock, maybe it's pushing you back into yourself to say, is this the correct way to go about this? Or is there another way that feels more aligned right now, right? Saturn pushes us into alignment through pain often. Then June 12th, we've got this pre-retrograde shadow beginning at 16 degrees of Cancer. So this is where things that happen between the 16th to the 29th may have to be redone, may have to be revisited. Things really start slowing down here as well. The mind really starts slowing down. And then this is where we have this, it's getting close to Jupiter, getting close to sextiling Mars, but not quite getting there. Feels like an itch that doesn't quite get scratched. But it's a nice alignment. So it's still a great time to be thinking about expansive writing, expansive communication, taking action, especially because Mars is in Taurus, taking grounded action towards something is still very much, I feel like whatever comes up around the 9th, then around the end of the month, if we maybe rethink it, redo it, we find a better way for ourselves, a more aligned way. And then it goes retrograde. And we'll be talking more about that for July. But it goes retrograde at 26 degrees of Cancer as we have this full moon in Capricorn, and Mars has just moved into Gemini, which is ruled by Mercury, right? So that Mars transit is going to be very, very interesting. Mars in Gemini can be very, very restless. Very restless. So because of the energy of the ruling planet being inward, it might change the quality of that quite a bit. Now, I want to talk about, what have we not talked about? Ooh, the human design. So as you can remember, last month we noted that we had a lot of throat center activation with the sun gates. So I go through and I see what the sun gates are, when they change. I also went through and noted when we have channels activated in the sky, because that will tell us a lot. So I'm not going to go through all of these in depth because that would take forever. But just to let you guys know, you cannot use AI for astrology and human design, which I kind of love right now, because that means you got to actually listen to people. You got to learn from people. So I go through and I find everything. This month we also have throat activation as well. And then towards the end of the month, once we start moving into Cancer energy and Chiron moves into Taurus, and then even more so at the end of the month, we've got some other things that are highlighted. The G center, which is about the self, love, direction, and the root center is about taking action, which really aligns with the end of the month having a full moon in Capricorn, right? That Mercury almost sextiling Mars and conjuncting Jupiter. There's something that kind of ramps up. And then Jupiter moves into Leo. Chiron moving into Taurus on June 19th is also really going to be beautiful. I am going to talk more about that. It's only going to be there for 3 months, and it's going to stay at 0 degrees Taurus the entire time, because it's going to go backwards into Aries until 2027. So it's just kind of like a preview, but I love talking about Turian things, and I love talking about Chiron. So we'll go deeper into that. And of course, as your Leo rising, Jupiter and Leo friend, we will be going deeper into Jupiter in Leo, because I have a lot of things to say about Geminis, yes, but I have even more to say about Leo energy, because I think we really misunderstand Leo energy collectively. Now, let's just talk a little bit about some of the reoccurring themes that I'm seeing here. And I have already mentioned this like inward nature, right? Especially as the beginning of the month, Mercury squaring Neptune, squaring Saturn. This is not like a proclamation energy. It's really asking you to sit with the ideas that you're having, to sit with the thoughts that you're having, the projects you want to move forward with, allowing yourself to really move into a sense of emotional intelligence here, because Cancer is very emotional. The thing I think is interesting to note about Cancer that makes it different than the other water signs is that it's the first water sign, which means that the emotions are primarily concerned with the self. This doesn't mean that Cancers are not emotional about other people, but that their evolutionary purpose here as an archetype is is more about learning and understanding their own emotional world. And then as we move into Scorpio, it's inviting the other person, right? It's in relationship. And then as we move into Pisces, it's the collective. I have Venus, South Node, and Chiron in Cancer. So I very much resonate with the themes of Cancer. And that's why I love the moon and I love moonstone. You know, when we have planets in Cancer, you got to really look at the moon and what the moon is doing, because that's the ruler of that sign, right? And the moon changes signs every 2.5 days, and it makes a lot of aspects. So that's why we can feel really moody when it's Cancer season. Yeah, look at this. This card just flipped out, the Hanged Man. This is a time you are being asked to sit. I just can't get over the fact that I'm doing a silent meditation retreat. At this scale, I just can't get over it. If you have an opportunity to do anything like that, any sort of like reprieve that you can take for yourself. It doesn't have to be a silent meditation. It can be like taking a hike by yourself, doing something by yourself. Just this is not the energy of like movement, because what's happening right now is you are being held in space so that you can see a new perspective. And this doesn't have to do with going outward, right? We end May with this full moon in Sagittarius, which I made a video about, and I talked about like Sagittarius's tendencies to seek outward and for answers. And this is really saying there is something within yourself. There is a feeling, there is a sense of receptivity, there is a sense of nourishment within yourself that will guide you to the answers that you're seeking. I didn't even talk about the Venus Jupiter as much as I wanted to, huh? Sometimes I'm like, I'll just let everybody else talk about it, because you already know everybody's gonna be talking about it as like the best day of the year. It's a nice transit. It really is. I'm not gonna demean that. I just think that our world is like overly obsessed with finding peace and pleasure in easier aspects. And what I find with Venus Jupiter, as somebody who works with people, is that a lot of people feel like they set a lot of expectations for Venus Jupiter transits because of all the messaging around it. And then when it doesn't live up to the standard, they feel like, what's wrong with me? Or like, what happened? And so, of course, you have to see where this is happening in your chart. And of course, everybody is going to feel this differently. Venus and Jupiter are both in Cancer. Unless this is happening in like your second or eighth house, a lot of people think abundance and they think money. And it's like, well, this isn't Cancer. This is a feeling of emotional abundance. It might just be something that happens that day. Venus, Jupiter don't have a quality of lasting. Venus does sustain, but also it's in Cancer. So it's like, it might be nice. Something nice might start off and then it might fizzle out. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it does sustain. What I will talk about in the Substack more is this quality of letting ourselves be surprised, letting ourselves be open to what wants to come versus what we need abundance to be right now. Because listen, Chiron's moving into Taurus. There's going to be a lot of wounding coming up collectively around money, around safety and security. And I want to start talking more about money because it's a huge thing that I've gone through in my life, relationship to money. I love talking about relationships because relationship is everything. I love talking about money. I love talking about visibility, right? Creativity. These are themes that I've really had to transform a lot throughout my life. So I love being able to share what I've learned through this. So even with this Venus Jupiter, can you just allow what wants to come? Can you sit in the stillness and not have these ideas of what it needs to look like? Because when we do that, we close off to all of the things that are wanting to come to us. How can we be like the moon? How do we just receive rather than go out there? Oh, what am I going to get? What am I going to get? Right? This is the exhale energy. I want to see what a block could be coming through that, yeah, in the month of June. What's a block that may be coming through for us? Yeah, Seven of Pentacles. Yeah. Seven of Pentacles is a card of like disappointment. He's looking at all these pentacles, but he doesn't look very happy. He's like, I thought I would have more by now. I thought I would have gone somewhere different by now. I would have, maybe this is the Venus Jupiter conjunction. It's like, hold on, I thought I was supposed to get blessings and opportunities and money and all these, this abundance. And when I think about this energy, it just reminds me once again that maybe there is a reality in your life that the material world does not feel secure, whether that's because of money, whether that's because of health, whether that's because of relationships. But also maybe that's why you need to be still to find a different perspective, right? Mercury is the planet of the month for me. So that's about our thoughts, that's about our mind, that's about our perspectives. Maybe something about this situation is keeping you feeling in a state of chronic dissatisfaction. I have a video I actually want to do about this because it's so easy for us as humans to fall into this state of victimhood and chronic dissatisfaction, right? And it's like something happens and we're just never happy. We're never happy with what we're given. And Venus Jupiter conjunction maybe for a lot of us just allowing ourselves to be happy with what we have, right? Learning to receive. And just any advice that wants to come through here. The Page of Wands. So this is interesting because whenever I get the page, I'm reminded that this is very youthful energy. This is a pioneering energy because it's the wands moving towards a new horizon, moving towards some sort of I'm feeling like this is very much Jupiter in Leo energy that's coming through. But the page is young. So the page doesn't have this like massive plan of what he wants to do. It's youthful fire. It's allowing ourselves to explore. It's allowing ourselves to start something without exactly knowing how it's going to end. To maybe take like a trip, right? Take a short trip and just explore and see what's out there. Wands are fire energy, so there's something about initiating. And I often find that Page of Wands can also be like creative as well. This could be like actually creating art or being a little bit more expressive. Maybe this is a month where you find your emotional intelligence and you find your voice in a way that requires you to stumble a few times because we've got this Mercury retrograde and it's hitting Saturn, and maybe you try to say something and you're like, oh, that's not really the way I want it to go, or you start a new project, it doesn't really go that great. And then we've got to kind of come back to our center and see what's happening. There is something about exploration. There is something about creativity and having fun. Like not losing this fun. The Seven of Wands. You know, the channel 1762, I talked about this briefly in my Sagittarius full moon video. It's a channel of acceptance. It's a very logical energy. And I talked about how it may be making people a lot more opinionated. And the other side of this as well is that, and we have this until June 12th, by the way. The other side of that is the fact that Neptune is in gate 17, and gate 17 is about logic and facts. We have to be really discerning who we trust and who we listen to, because people are feeling very, very opinionated, but they may not be fully honest either with themselves and therefore with others, or just with others. People may be on guard this month. Oh, that's the thing. Cancer is very protective. Cancer is very, very protective. So people may be feeling very emotionally protective. Remember what I was saying about Cancers being the first water sign and being concerned with the self, right? It's it's so hard because I have a lot of Cancer energy, And sometimes when I talk about Cancer energy, I'm like, oh, Cancers are not gonna like hearing this. Every archetype has a beautiful thing that they bring. And Cancers sometimes need to integrate a little bit of that Capricorn energy, right? Which is like, hey man, it's not all about your feelings. It's not always about your feelings being heard or not being your needs not being met. And sometimes you gotta meet your own needs. Sometimes it's not other people's thing to do. And Cancers can be very guarded when they become overly protective of their emotional self. So people may be feeling opinionated, they may be feeling very attached to their opinions. Don't take things personally. What would it feel like to just let down your guard and express an emotion? And if it doesn't land for the other person, it doesn't mean that your emotion is wrong or that you did something wrong. Cancers really want emotional connection, and then they feel really lonely because they've guarded themselves up so much, right? They've retreated into their shell so much because they're terrified of being hurt. So Cancer really has to work. Oh, this full moon in Capricorn is going to be wonderful. I'm so excited to talk about this. We really got to learn to kind of build this inner strength that says that's okay if someone doesn't understand how I feel or doesn't meet the need that I have in this way. Maybe I can meet it from another perspective, or I can meet it here, or I can meet it like there's just so many different ways. I could go on and on about this energy of Cancer. But I think the biggest thing here is saying be wary of other people feeling really protective and be wary of yourself feeling really emotionally guarded as well. I'm also just thinking June 7th through the 13th, we've got the 2145, which is the channel of money. So it really feels like this month a lot of people are going to be thinking about money. They're going to be thinking about security. And that makes sense with everything that's going on with the world right now. But once again, that hanged man, that's a major arcana. I really think we're going to have to change our perspective on what abundance means, where we get our safety and stability and security, what actually sustains us day to day, what actually nourishes us. This is all of the inward work that we're going. I love tarot so much. Ooh, gosh, you guys, what's going on here? The Five of Wands after the Seven of Wands. Wow, that's really interesting because we're missing the Six of Wands, which is a feeling of success. Hmm, that's very interesting, you guys. I'm really feeling like there's going to be a lot of reasons for you to feel not good. But this is the thing, you guys. I really truly believe this is like the calm before the storm, and it's such an exhale that it's asking you to like reorient yourself internally. I feel like because the five of wands is a card of conflict and change. Fives are all about change. And the six of wands is about success, and the seven wands is about like protecting and defending what you have. So the fact that we're missing the six is also ruled by Venus. It's about harmony. So I do feel like this month might be a time where there might be a little bit more discord between you and other people. There might be more of an opportunity to understand repair through conflict. Conflict is not a negative thing. We just are not taught as a society how to repair in a way that doesn't self-abandon, in a way that doesn't just gloss over things. Okay, one last message. This is the thing with tarots. Like when I do my tarot card readings every week, I only do one card for each because you can just keep on going, baby. And then at some point you're like, I think I'm just trying to get out of this energy, you know? As soon as I'm talking about like not feeling good, and then I get the card of self-sufficiency and luxury and pleasure, I feel like the tarot is messing with me. It's like, go away, you're done. This is really like Venus Jupiter conjunction. honestly, this is abundance, this is self-sufficiency, this is feeling independent. The 9 is, it's not the 10, so it's not feeling super abundant in the fact that it's like achieved all of its goals. It recognizes it's still in the process, it's almost there. And I think this energy is really available to us the entire time this month. As I said, when I see this, it doesn't have to mean this, right? It can mean this. If you don't know anything about tarot, you're probably like, what the hell just happened? But essentially, just because there's conflict and discord, it doesn't mean you have to be disappointed or like you did something wrong or something is totally going, out of the way it's supposed to. It can instead feel like, how can I get more curious about this? How can I have more of a pioneering attitude? And how can I actually allow myself to feel abundant with what is here already? And that, my friend, might be the perspective that June is offering us. How do we be more receptive to what we already have? Mars is in Taurus all month, and Taurus is the opposite of Scorpio. There is a contentment to Taurus of what they get, of what they have, versus Scorpio, which is like more, 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 right? It's the underworld. So it just keeps on, it needs more, it needs more, it needs more. That's why a lot of Scorpionic people, eighth house people, can do really well in business, in money, in the, dog eat dog energy. They may not love it, but they can do well in it because there's that like, it's not enough, it's not enough. But Taurus is like, I'm just good. That's kind of the shadow of it, is just being too content, and getting stuck and being rigid. And Mars here doesn't like being here because Mars is the pioneer and Taurus is like, I'm good though. Everything's good. That's what I was saying. Mars is going through my 10th house in Taurus, and I'm like, I'm gonna go to a retreat, you guys. Everyone good? I'm gonna go to a retreat. On the plus side of this, I just got the Ace of Pentacles. On the plus side of this, though, is a new relationship to money, safety, security, and of course, for some of us, a new way of making money. Whenever this comes up, it's always a possibility. So sometimes we just have to open to everything that's already here in the present moment, right? In somatic work, one of the key things that we do is orientation. That is something that you might want to play with this month, because orientation means essentially just orienting yourself to the space that you're in, right? So I do this often with my clients and with my students, is we just orient to what's in the room. Maybe naming one or two things that you see, especially because this is Cancer and Taurus energy, finding a texture that feels really pleasing, a blanket that you love, an item that has some sentimentality, and just naming it for yourself. And so a lot of times people think like somatic work is like this, like, oh, I gotta shake it out, I gotta do this. And sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. There's no rigid way of doing it. And also, if we don't have the foundations of safety in place, then those things are just become a way of avoidance. So orientation is a foundational safety move, and Cancer loves safety. Cancer and Taurus both love safety. One's emotional, one's physical, but they both love safety and comfort. So focusing on the foundations of safety, of orientation, because what happens when we orient to the space that we're in, because most of us don't do that. Most of us don't walk into a room and say, where am I? Right? Unless we've forgotten why we came into a room. We don't walk in and say, I'm here. And so the brain in the background, the nervous system is kind of vigilant on like, where, what are we doing, and who's here, and where are we even? And so when we tell the brain, hey, I'm looking around the room, there are no tigers, there are no masked men, instead there's a fuzzy pillow here, and the brain goes, oh, okay, she knows where we're at, she's got this, I don't have to be on guard. Ooh, on guard, right? Seven of Wands. How much of our resistance and protective nature is just a mirror to how much we are constantly resisting and protecting ourselves from being deeply in this moment as it is, and just letting ourselves be and feeling the emotions that are just here. So this month, focusing on orientation. How can you bring more of that into your life? Maybe right now you've done it, or maybe after this video, if it's, if you're driving or something, after this video, you'll orient yourself in a space. And it's those little things that actually end up bringing more safety and capacity to the nervous system than a lot of the bigger, like trauma work things, right? It's just establishing this baseline. Thanks for sitting with me. I will be on a retreat when this video comes out, so please leave me some love down below. This is my first time doing a 2-week retreat. I usually do 1-week retreats, and I'm excited to see what wants to arise in that extra week. I will be changing some of my offers when I come back. I'm currently taking a break from doing one-on-one work, but I will be changing some of my workshops and moving some things around. So if you are interested in anything that I have to offer right now, as it is, for the price it is, for the structure that it has, you can head over to my website and take a gander there and see if anything aligns for you. Otherwise, you will see it when it changes, and I will be talking about the changes then. Until next time.